When someone's life experience becomes their mission, it can change everything around them. Today's guest, Congresswoman Victoria Spartz, escaped the tyranny of Russia and the KGB to become one of the nation's leading voices on fiscal soundness, national security, and freedom. She came to America with just a suitcase in hand. Now she's bringing Americans to the table of Congress. From Ballard Studios in Washington, D.C., it's 13th and Park.
We give you information, not a panic attack.
I mean, look what's going on. I mean, my God.
This was it. The kids were gonna die.
That time is gone forever.
This is the biggest story in America.
We weren't prepared for this.
Don't you want to speak truth to power?
Toughest thing I ever had to do.
Victoria, welcome to the show. It's quite an interesting world out there right now, isn't it?
Definitely full of news.
Let's start in the beginning with you. You came from Ukraine under Russian control. You meet your husband, I think, on a train somewhere in Europe, Jason. You come to America in 2000. You become a U.S. citizen in 2006. And then the story picks up in Indiana, where you started as a bank teller. Then you were a CPA. Then basically you were the CPA for the state in a way, as you worked as a CFO for the Attorney General. What did that experience do in kind of coloring your perspective about this country and also about where you came from?
Well, I think a lot of Americans don't really understand what is really to lose freedoms and what not to have them. So you have a challenge where people, little by little, and the system is very clever to incrementally take your freedoms away so you don't notice. And I came from a tyranny, dictatorship, communism, KGB times. I grew up, I was young, but I wasn't a baby, when Soviet Union fell apart. So I have very vivid experiences and understanding of that. I saw what's happening, what happened in early 90s, and it was mob rule. When system fails, it always leads to mob rule. And you can see Ukrainian people for now over 30 years being a free country still cannot get freedoms back, going through an enormous amount of bloodshed and cannot get them back. We forget how many Americans went through bloodshed for us to have these freedoms.
Right.
So when I came here, probably learned about America from Alexis de Tocqueville, Friedman, Hayek. It was a very vibrant time back, in post-Soviet Ukraine. So I was just idealistic and, and someone who read about America in too perfectionist way. But I'm also realist, I do not take, I don't think the political system is the perfect in anything. But as an American, I don't want to give up on the principles that makes our country great. And what makes us great is the freedoms that we have as individuals, that we don't have people on top, these elites, telling us what to do, and then everyone else equally poor. That's what socialism is. So when I saw things happening in the United States, I cannot believe, and that is not a long time ago when the Soviet Union was defeated. I cannot believe now we're building socialism. Our government using the same techniques with all of these collective responsibilities. I remember this collectivism from all brainwashing. So it just breaks my heart. And I just, I'm a person that cannot just give up and need to do something about it.
Now, tell me what the differences are between what you were able to do in Indiana, which is a fairly conservative fiscal policy direction, how that compares to what you experienced on fiscal matters when you came to Washington, D.C.
I spent quite a long time, doing auditing of companies, through publicly traded companies, through big four firms. And was very surprised for me when I look at the government finances. I'm like, OMG, come to Jesus moment for me. But I understand, the challenge. And that's why you say the system can be only limited to do core functions because there is no incentive for the bottom line and performance. It's like, even in the state of Indiana, which we're much better than other states, but our competition is so bad. So it's not that hard to be much better, okay? And I was state senator, and I tried to I'm very competitive. I want my state to be the greatest state in the nation. So I wanted my states to be better. I fought in a lot of legislation, even in Republican supermajorities with Republican governors. I'm not just coming because someone in the other party. I just believe that we need to do the right thing. So I kind of look at things and I'm like, okay, it's like one of our former governor, he just did performance performance metrics and he paying people bonuses. And while he was there, they worked. As soon as he left, everyone gets the same. Everyone is.
Yeah, regardless of performance.
Regardless of performance,
Right.
we have, no one is doing that. But it's almost like you have to understand that the system, just can't, because there is no bottom line. And unfortunately, there is no lobby for the people in any of these institutions. The only lobby for the people should be the legislators, a representative, whether it's a state house, whether it's Congress. We lobby for we the people, but a lot of people forget, and that is a challenge.
There's a sense of hopelessness a lot of people feel, frankly, about the budget.
Yeah.
With all the talk and all the efforts, it seems it keeps growing meteorically. The debt keeps growing out of control. Yeah. It's been across many administrations. It's not just Republicans or Democrats. It's everybody. How do we get our arms around the budget in a way that doesn't hurt our economy? It actually puts all of us as taxpayers, as people that are America, on better financial footing.
I hate to, be realist here, but unfortunately, until crisis happens, and it's looming, big crisis is looming, unfortunately, there is no political will for politicians to do anything. We kind of created a system we're governed by crises. And I am trying, actually I fought extremely hard to at least have a fiscal commission to have discussion about that. Maybe we don't agree on something, but let's just talk about it. I understand it's been punted for decades. I understand it's such a mess right now. It's so hard. But when we figure it out, when Schumer and Biden figure out that fiscal commission might actually become a law, because I eventually, after a lot of fights, got McCarthy on board, okay? A lot of fights with him. But he was on board. Johnson was on board. When they figure out, they start truly, attacking and say they're going to start whipping and attacking, start coming after Democrats, and nothing happened. We have a debt ceiling increase at the end of the year. It's unhealthy for the economy to all this shutdowns, defaults. It's just stupid, okay? And then doing something stupid last second that no one even knows what it is. That's not how you govern. You have to at least incrementally have a plan. Everyone is afraid politically, because if you start doing something here, you get a lot of money coming after you in political attacks with lies. And anymore, you can say anything you want in media with lies. And most of my colleagues are afraid of it.
There may be common ground behind the curtain, behind closed doors, but when it comes to being in front of the public, it seems everyone is scared to make a move, right?
They're afraid because they're going to be attacked, because no one wants to go against the machine, because a lot of people here, want to be forever, or at least for a while. They're afraid to do the right thing. I think Aristotle said that the most important of all virtues is bravery, right? I think we forgot, and Aristotle told us we have to teach our children what is our government is about, the most important job. I think we forgot a lot of genius and teachings and are not taught in schools anymore to remind us. And I think that's a challenge.
You were one of the leaders, obviously, of the CPA caucus, and it is what it sounds like. Yeah. It's a caucus devoted to kind of getting the books right. And Brad Sherman, a Democrat from California, is the co-chairman on that committee with you. One of the things you're pushing, both of you, is to roll back any capital gains advantages investors have in investing in the worst places in the world. We're talking about Russia, Iran, North Korea, China. Is that gathering steam? Does that have an opportunity to actually happen and be enacted into law?
Well, listen, we need to work on that, and I think we need to educate our colleagues, because unfortunately, a lot of them don't understand the implication. And listen, and I'm like, okay, if somebody wants to invest in China, that's a choice. We're a free country. You want to invest in a communist country, please go ahead, do it. But don't force a lot of American taxpayers and funds that don't even realize that you invest in China. And a lot of these people, you put them at risk. That is actually risk for markets, because now what they say, a lot of these people in investment business world, in banking world, and I used to be very involved in that world. I used to work involved with big finances, so I understand where the bodies are buried. So I'm not really don't understand that a lot of these people now, we have such a dependency on this, it can affect our markets. First of all, right, they're lying, but second of all, no one thinking implications if we have a big crisis or being involved in some war where we'll be directly on opposite side. Now China doing things behind the scenes, but it's possible. So what is it going to do And how is it we're going to lose our independence to do the right policy? That is a danger. This is a national security risk to be dependent. To be dependent on one country, foreign country, regardless of 80% dependencies, that's a problem. But China, communist countries that want to take us down, let's just not be naive. That is really national security risk. And I hope that there is so much politics because a lot of financial people have very healthy contribution and a lot of political campaigns and do the fear-mongering a lot with my colleagues, and a lot of them believe it.
We just heard the Biden administration come out with, I would say finally, an attempt at stemming asylum seekers on the southern border. You have been a big part of the discussion on immigration, not just on the southern border, but overall. It feels to a lot of people, Victoria, that this is a very, very late in the game, that the administration finally made a step. And of course, it's a campaign year. You can't help but leap to that as a reason or rationale, as opposed to getting control of something that most Americans feel is out of control.
Listen, you saw what China was doing during pandemic. So we saw what they were doing and how they were manipulated supply chain and everything else. So this is an example where it has actually happened just recently, and we still didn't learn from mistakes of policies. But looking at that situation at the border, and listen, I am a legal immigrant. I came here legally, so we're a country of immigrants, but immigrants brought diversity of ideas, but what unites us as people coming from very diverse backgrounds, races, religion, is believe in our constitutional principles and the rule of law. And we have to, if we lose rule of law, listen, I always say, if we want mob rule, I'm okay with it. I live through it. I don't think most Americans understand what mob rule is, but I live through mob rule. I'll survive. I have lots of guns and ammunition. That's what matters at that time. But I don't think we want to go there. And I don't think, that usually it leads to pretty bad stuff happening in the end. And we have to really not allow, but we do have mob rule, actually cartel rule at the border right now. And we tell it this political stuff just an appeasement. I mean, it's a joke. First of all, Biden doesn't have to do all of this presentation. He can secure a border right now if he wants to do it.
By doing what?
But doing what Trump was doing, actually not incentivizing, cartels to enslave people, make a lot of money. He could do it. You don't have to have legislation. But this legislation is almost kind of ridiculous. Who's going to be calculated? And, what is the number is there? Who even know these numbers? How this is going to be enforced? A cartel is now going to be, okay, let's just make sure that we have $24.99 on this, and let's just decide. Maybe he hopes that cartels will start fighting with each other, which quota they're going to get. It's ridiculous. Right. It's stupid. It's just embarrassing, and it's really not meaningful. He just wants to show that it's a totally political messaging because he understands he's losing. He understands he mismanaged these issues, and he's trying to spin it like, he's doing something. This is a complete lie. But this is a national security risk that is disgraceful that he allowed that happening.
No one will ever accuse you of not having passion. And one of the things that the American public saw 2 years ago was when you made a statement in front of the cameras having to do with the war in Ukraine and how you wore your heart on both your sleeves and went at it. I want to play you this clip, and then I want to try to separate out the argument that has emerged here, that either you're all in for Ukraine with blank checks behind that, or you're fully behind the Ukrainian people, but you want to do it responsibly. Let me get your reaction to this.
They're bombing civilians non-stop. They came into village with a heavy machine gun, killed almost every person in that village. And whatever people were left, women and children, they forced them to work in front of the tanks as a human shield. My mom was shocked. She says, "No, don't cry. We are not crying here. We're going to fight, but just give us some guns so we don't just fight with the sticks."
We need to fight, Victoria. I can see how you're reacting to it all over again, like you're back in that moment, and I understand that. We need to fight. Americans also need to stand behind their allies. But this in Washington, as so many things, Victoria, has become a either or. Yeah. Like you're either 100% blank check, no questions asked, or we are all in, but let's do it so that we direct our resources and our investment in ways that will really make a difference for the Ukrainian people.
Unfortunately, Washington, D.C. is driven by monopoly of narratives, which actually, these narratives are good political messaging, but they actually achieve no results. And we fail in a lot of foreign issues, including what's happened just in Afghanistan, trillions of dollars spent. We have not learned from this mistake. So I think there are two challenges. First of all, there are a lot of perverse incentive to have this never-ending war. So no one cares how many people die. No one cares. It's because people make a lot of money. It doesn't matter. From a lot of people, it's a big business, and it's a sad reality. And second, I think we have too many people now that are book smart in foreign policies. They're selling books. I think Cicero was saying something, about when Roman Republic was falling. He says, Republic is falling, kids not listening to parents, and everyone is writing the book. So they all talk about these things that are not realistic. This is actually very divisive for the country. All of that it's actually a wrong approach, because you have to have a strategy. You have to have better deterrences so you don't have your adversaries and enemies moving and they piece through strands. Unfortunately, is not something that is really happening, but you also have to manage the process and you have to make sure that accountability is happening. Otherwise, you're really betraying the people that you represent, but also let's just be honest and let's just have a very honest foreign policies, because if we don't deal with that, then we will be dealing with big issues and issues escalate. And we saw what's happened when I said 2 years ago, we're not dealing with Ukraine, we'll have more wars. Unfortunately, we now have destabilized Middle East, which is a huge problem because whether we like it or not, our adversaries will be moving to stretch us, and we need to be smart. And unfortunately, our foreign policies are not smart because they're written by a lot of young kids or people, 25-year-old college graduates from woke colleges, who actually think that they're running this, and actually they are running this place. That's a problem. Or we have bureaucrats that sat here for 30 years at only Washington, D.C., and they live in the bubble and have these meetings and presentations talking to each other, great ideas that no one ever implements or implements it just wrong.
All these existential threats happening at the same time. Is it your perspective, because of your background and your kind of your fiscal sense of balance, that when we make these investments, we have to do these with a sense of prioritization as opposed to whatever is being asked, we just kind of throw it into the pot?
Well, I don't understand why we have this kind of a concept. Like, government is not unlimited amount of money. We have a limited amount of money, and we need to deliver core functions with the best with our abilities. And what's happening right now, we don't have any strategy. We don't have leadership. No one is really trying to concentrate and decide. So what they do, they keep in more and more money and put in good money after bad money. And there are three ways what you can raise money. Print money, which we printed quite a bit, but it causes what? Inflation. What is reflation? Highly regressive tax. All Americans are paying, but especially low-income Americans really getting hurt by that. Then you borrow. Well, we borrowed so much that now 25% of our revenue collections goes to pay for interest, $1 trillion, just for interest. And we already accumulated a lot of debt. At some point, it might become unfeasible to continue borrow that. And then the third one, you raise taxes. There are no other ways. And if we raise taxes, we're going to destroy the middle class, because there are not enough rich people. And let's just be honest, rich people will never pay taxes. They have money that's shielded in assets in foreign countries. So all these billionaires, don't talk me that billion. Even if we take all of the assets, it wouldn't even make a dent, okay? And plus already existing debt, like even doubling taxes is not going to get us where. So, but that is destruction of the middle class, where you will be working for government, and government is, that's what socialism really is.
So you have a reputation for not having a lot of patience when you see or you're confronted with something that doesn't feel right, that isn't right. And often in Washington, D.C., you see this all the time. When you're dealing with people that are trying to defend the bureaucracy, they're trying to defend the way things are that aren't working. And I want to play a clip. I could have picked one of 1,000 clips. This is a conversation, we'll say, that you had with Attorney General Merrick Garland not long ago.
I could buy 10 guns and try to shoot them in the range. They're not good, and I went and sold them. Should be there any limitations on the time frame or percentage of how much of my collections I can replace?
There's an exception in the statute for sales from personal collections.
So I can do as many. I can sell 500 guns, so it shouldn't be a problem, right?
All I can say is there's an exception in the statute and the regulations with respect to sales from personal collections. I don't know the answer to the question about percentages.
Well, it would be good because American people would like to know the answer, because this creates a lot of dangers, and we'll follow up with the latter because, this is called destroy people's life, and we already had this situation that happened in Arkansas.
If the American people were in the seat that you were in, I bet a lot of people would ask the kinds of questions that you ask in the way you ask them and wanting a response not that's full of bureaucraties, but reality. What is the answer, sir or ma'am, to this question, as opposed to dodging and weaving, think it's some kind of game? It's no game. This is our country, and these are our lives.
I can be passionate with some issue, but when we deal with life and death situation, it is my job, to save people's life and protect people's rights. And people don't understand the implication. Washington, D.C. is set up to confuse people. When you write something 500 pages, you want to hide something, right? So in the law, actually, in the Indiana Constitution, we had the law. The laws are not enforceable if they're not, plain language understood. So if you write this 500 pages thing, and then you're going to use it to come after people, they don't even know they've done something wrong, and you're going to storm their houses, and you're going to send ATFs. That's a problem. You put your agent in danger, and you put people in danger because you don't even know. You could let what the situation in Arkansas. I don't really know the details of the situation, but that situation can happen anywhere. People don't even realize. So we need to have a clarity, what our laws are. And we give so much power and discretion to executive branch now, and they have this ambiguous things. And we're not doing our job to actually legislating and holding them accountable, keep giving them more money. This is ridiculous. The FBI is so great that we gave them new headquarters. Okay, I'm like, seriously? But I think that's a challenge. So I am impatient in the way. I have a real situation in my district that people's lives can be destroyed because these people have an agenda. They have a political agenda. And they don't care how many casualties it will bring. They don't care what the implication. They don't care how destabilizing it is for the country and what they're doing to the people. I worry about that because I understand what can happen if we don't deal with that. And I understand the urgency because it's, we have like a Titanic. So sometimes, when the government is, usually take little adjustment, that's fine, but it's been adjusted in the wrong direction so bad. We're on a collision course. So it will take a little bit faster move. We're going to collide with that iceberg, and it's going to be not pretty. The implication of that, a lot of people don't realize what is going to happen and how many lives will be destroyed. And it really bothers me that we're sitting here and doing presentations, fighting China on TV, versus actually look at some issues with some sense of urgency.
Coming from where you came from and knowing what could happen anywhere, including America, if we allow things to kind of move too far in one direction, is that kind of your motivation? And also, is it give you a deeper appreciation for where you are right now in the United States of America?
It probably does, just because when you experience, injustice, when you experience tyranny, you're kind of like, ooh. I was just watching some HBO series about Chernobyl. I grew up very close to it, and they had all the KGB, and it was actually a very good series, It became always very vivid in my memory, all of the experiences, actually. I would suggest if somebody wants to see what socialism is, I would suggest to watch that movie. But I think, the challenge, we have, unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that, but a lot of people do realize. And I'll be honest with you, I don't enjoy being in Washington, D.C. It's a great honor, but I have to take a shower when I come home. This is a bad place, okay? But then I go back home, I see a lot of good Americans, as frustrated as me. I see how injustice is done to them. And I feel it is my duty because, these people elected me to fight for them. So I feel bad. I feel bad that I'm like, people sacrifice more than I did. Some people get attacked even more. I look at Trump, thank God for Trump, so they don't attack me as much as him because, we are very popular to write hit pieces on. Like one of my constituents, I went on the flight with him, and he is like, you should take it as a badge of honor. If they write all this, fake media and liberal news about you, then you're doing something. They don't write about people that don't do anything. And I'm like, well, I guess I could take less of that honor, but it's probably true. They want to wear you out. They want to try to take in. They use all mechanisms, whatever they can. They use judicial system. They use police state. They will use media. They will use whatever they can to try to take you down because you're someone who's actually have some common sense and willing to tell the truth. And this place is so full of lies now that no one wants to hear the truth because unfortunately, they think that they can control the people and brainwash. And, unfortunately for them, people are not as stupid as they think. People just don't know what to do and how to deal with that. Congress has a lower approval rating than Biden, and that's, you need to work on it, okay? So it's pretty bad. So I think people are very frustrated. It's not like people don't understand. People they just make systems so complicated, convoluted on purpose. So then they can confuse people. But that is job people like me to understand what's happening here, to have that transparent conversation. And they're truly afraid because if we still have the power of the people, we still can make a difference. They wanted to change a lot of things that will become puppets, but we are not yet. So they worry the public will realize that they're all in trouble here. So that's why they're afraid of the people, truly.
I think you make a very good point about how here in Washington, people in elected office aren't always forthright or putting themselves out there. But with someone like you, Victoria, again, going to your life experience and what you've done with it, people can go through harrowing things and just never kind of recover from it or do anything with it. I think you not only recovered, you've done a lot of things with that. And what you're doing is you're educating America about consequences, because it's very easy for us to look at situations and just go for the headline without understanding what could be coming next because of where you've come from, because of what you've experienced, your family has experienced. I think you are a very important voice in America, and hopefully for fiscal discipline so our kids and grandkids won't be saddled forever with kicking the can down the road. It's a delight to have you on the show. Power forward, be yourself. I think we could all benefit from just that.
Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate people like you are that willing to have honest conversation with the American people, because Washington, D.C. is not going to solve these problems. It's too far gone. It will take the American people saying enough is enough. And that's why elections are for. People need to understand elections have significant consequences. And when they complain about that, they shouldn't be looking at the party, no. They should look at the individual and what is the vision of this individual, what is their track record, not what they're saying, but what they actually accomplished. What did you fight for? And what is your vision for the country? And people need to pay more attention. Otherwise, we're going to lose this republic. And it's going to be very hard to get it back.
Victoria,
thank you very much.
Today. Go get them.
Thank you.